What if the most powerful thing you ever said was nothing at all? That's what she's wrestling with now. She expected noise. She expected a breakdown. She expected the version of you who would chase, explain, plead. But instead, she's met with silence. And that silence, it speaks louder than any text ever could. Because when a man stops responding, not from spite but from self-respect, something unspoken shifts. He's not avoiding the pain. He's rising through it. He's not trying to be understood. He's understanding himself. She's confused because the role she expected you to play, falling apart in her absence, is no longer yours to carry. You let her go. And with that decision, you reclaimed everything: your focus, your energy, your peace. This message is for the man who knows he has nothing left to prove. For the man who lets go, not because he doesn't care, but because he finally cares enough about himself. Welcome to Stoic Station, where we speak through action, grow in stillness, and rise from within. If this message resonates, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and continue your journey toward deeper strength and clarity. Now, let's begin. 1. If she wants to leave, let her. If she wants to leave, let her. You're not a prison guard holding someone hostage to a commitment they no longer respect. If she chooses to walk away, allow the door to close quietly behind her. Don't chase, don't beg, don't try to convince her of your worth. That kind of energy belongs to a man who hasn't yet realized that love without mutual effort isn't a gift. It's a burden. A man who knows his value doesn't plead to stay in someone's life. He doesn't cling, not because he's numb, but because he understands something deeper. When someone has decided to let go, the most powerful thing you can do is let go too. What she expects after rejecting you is emotional chaos. She anticipates the usual pattern: text messages at midnight, emotional outbursts, desperate explanations. She's seen it before. And if you follow that script, you only confirm her belief that she still holds power over your emotional state. But when you respond with calm silence, with no resistance, no bitterness, no attempt to make her feel guilty, you disrupt that script entirely. And that's when confusion sets in. Not for you, for her. Because now, for the first time, your silence removes her control. Silence, when rooted in self-respect, becomes a mirror she wasn't prepared to face. It doesn't scream or chase, it reflects. It forces her to sit with her decision, without your reactions softening the blow. You're no longer giving her emotional feedback, and without it, she no longer knows where she stands. Letting her go doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough about yourself to not beg for what should have been freely given. You loved her, maybe deeply, but you love your peace more. And that peace? It's non-negotiable now. So if she leaves, let her. Let her walk into her choice fully. Let her find silence where she expected noise. Let her discover that the man she once thought would fall apart simply took a deep breath, stood taller, and kept moving forward. Because a man who refuses to lose himself in the name of love is a man who never really loses at all. 2. Silence is power. Words can be debated. Actions can be misinterpreted. But silence, true, intentional silence, carries a weight that lingers. It doesn't beg to be heard, but it's felt deeply. It echoes in the quiet moments when the world slows down. And it does something that no long message, no confrontation, no emotional plea can ever do. It makes her question everything. You're not being silent because you're bitter. You're not giving her the cold shoulder out of revenge. You're choosing something far greater than drama: peace. You're no longer in the business of performance, no longer auditioning for someone who failed to see your worth when it was standing right in front of them. You've shifted from proving to preserving your energy, your clarity, your dignity. There is strength in restraint, A man who learns to speak through his absence, to express through presence alone, becomes powerful in a way that is quietly unshakable. When you stop responding, when you no longer react, something in the balance between you changes. The silence you hold doesn't come from weakness. It's born from a refined sense of self-control, the kind that only men who have faced rejection without losing themselves can carry. And in that space, something unfamiliar happens on her end. The silence begins to speak to her in ways she can't explain. It triggers doubt, reflection, even discomfort. Suddenly she starts to wonder, was she wrong? Did she misread you? Did she walk away from something rare? That's when the dynamic shifts. Not because you made a dramatic move, but because you didn't. Not because you explained your value, but because you stopped offering it freely. The power of silence lies not just in what it denies her, but in what it reclaims for you. It's no longer about closure. It's not about revenge. It's about sovereignty, emotional independence. Your silence becomes a boundary, a statement, a calm, undeniable declaration that you're done negotiating with anyone who couldn't appreciate your presence when it was offered wholeheartedly. And that's where your power begins, not in what you say, but in what you no longer feel the need to explain. 3. Self-improvement is the only real revenge. You don't need to post cryptic quotes. You don't need to hint at your heartbreak with sad lyrics or subtle jabs on social media. You don't owe the world or her an explanation for your silence. The most profound response to rejection is not noise, it's transformation. Not the kind you put on display for approval, but the kind you quietly build in solitude. The kind no one sees coming until it's too late to undo. Start with yourself. Stand a little taller, not because you're trying to be seen, but because you finally see yourself. Walk into a room with calm presence, not loud energy. Train your body, not to get noticed, but to honor the strength that's always been inside you. Hit the gym not to impress her, but because your body is the first space you reclaim after heartbreak. It's where discipline begins again. Channel your focus into your craft, your business, your mind. The hours you once gave to waiting, explaining, hoping, redirect them into something that builds. Grow a deeper sense of peace, a clearer vision, a life that no longer needs to be explained or justified. You don't do any of this for her. You do it for the man who almost forgot his worth trying to prove it to someone else. And while you're doing this work, quietly, steadily, she'll be watching. Maybe not with her real account, maybe not with a message, but she'll see the shift, the new confidence, the glow she didn't expect. She'll wonder how the man she walked away from turned into someone she no longer recognizes, but can't seem to ignore. Let your progress confuse her. Let your improvement speak a language that her pride won't allow her to acknowledge out loud. Because the man who becomes better after rejection is no longer chasing anything outside himself. He's no longer hoping to be seen by someone who once overlooked him. He's building, thriving, expanding, and the beauty of it all? He's not doing it for revenge. He's doing it because pain introduced him to purpose. Because rejection was the wake-up call, not the defeat. The man who thrives after being rejected doesn't want her back. He doesn't even need her to regret it. He's too focused on becoming the version of himself he was always meant to be. And that kind of growth, it doesn't scream, it whispers, and everyone still hears it. 4. The moment you truly move on, she feels it. It doesn't happen when you stop texting. It's not the moment you delete her number, unfollow her, or archive the photos. Those are surface-level shifts, and they often carry the residue of hope. The real change happens in silence, when you no longer check to see if she viewed your story, when you no longer wonder what she thinks about your absence, when you finally stop narrating your growth in hopes that she's paying attention. That's when she feels it. There's a shift in the atmosphere that's hard to define, but undeniable. When your energy pulls back, not in bitterness, not in spite, but in peace, something unspoken begins to register on her end. Because the truth is, for a while, even after the separation, you were still holding space for her. You were still leaving a door open, still carrying her shadow in your choices, your silence heavy with longing. But now your silence feels different. It's no longer charged with emotion. It's clean, calm, closed. She can feel it in the way you no longer reach, in the way your presence has returned fully to yourself. You're not pretending to move on. You're not performing detachment. You've actually let go, and that energy is impossible to fake. It's in the way your face looks more at ease, how your smile doesn't feel like a mask anymore. It's in your pace, your posture, your focus. You've reclaimed the space she once occupied, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and you've filled it with something richer: purpose, clarity, self-respect. And that's when she begins to feel the void. Not the kind that's created when someone disappears out of anger, but the one that forms when someone stops orbiting around you completely. She might not understand it at first, but she'll feel the absence of being emotionally held. That quiet, invisible thread that once kept her tethered to you is gone. And for the first time, she's not sure if she could ever find her way back, even if she tried. Because you're no longer holding her place. You're no longer carrying her name in your energy. The chapter has closed, not loudly, but fully. And what's left behind is a man who's not just healing, but free. And that freedom, it speaks louder than any goodbye ever could. 5. Let her watch you win from a distance. There is something profoundly powerful in rising quietly without asking for applause. It's not about revenge. It's not about making a point. It's about knowing that the man you're becoming no longer needs validation from the one who couldn't see your value when it was offered freely. You don't need her to say she's proud of you. You don't need the message that says, "I see it now." Because the truth is, if she didn't recognize your worth before the transformation, she doesn't deserve a front row seat after it. Let her hear about your progress from other people. Let her come across your image unexpectedly, stronger, sharper, more grounded than she remembers. Let her feel that quiet tension when mutual friends mention your name with respect. She won't say much. She might even pretend not to care. But she'll feel it. The sting of realizing that she once had access to a version of you that was still unfolding, and she walked away before the breakthrough. She thought you would fall apart. She assumed her absence would leave you shattered, but instead, you rebuilt, not out of desperation, but out of discipline. You found yourself in the stillness. You created something unshakable in the silence, and now, the man she thought she knew, he's gone, replaced by someone who no longer holds the same softness for her memory, someone who now carries himself with quiet certainty. Let her watch from the sidelines, not out of cruelty, but because she no longer belongs in the space you've created through sweat, growth, and perseverance. The seat she once held is now reserved for those who see you clearly, before and after. She may feel nostalgia. She may feel regret. But she no longer has the right to feel entitled to your presence. The door she slammed behind her is no longer locked. It's vanished. There's no going back to what was, because you're not the same man anymore. And the beauty of it all, you never had to tell her. You never had to prove anything. You simply rose. You simply healed. You simply kept walking. Let her admire you from a distance, because that's all that's left for her to do. Not to punish her, but to protect the man you've become. 6. Don't expect her to acknowledge your growth. Even if she sees your transformation, she won't say a word. Not because she's blind to it, not because it doesn't move her, but because admitting it would mean confronting something her pride refuses to face. To acknowledge how far you've come is to admit what she overlooked, what she walked away from, and for many, that truth is too heavy to carry. Waiting for her to recognize your growth is like waiting for closure from the person who caused the wound. It's a trap. It keeps you tethered to someone else's approval when the real victory was never about her noticing. It was about you evolving. You didn't become better to impress her. You didn't rebuild your mind, your body, your peace, just to hear her say, "I'm proud of you." That wasn't the point. Her silence now speaks volumes. That discomfort she shows when your name comes up, that's the acknowledgement. That tension in her voice when someone praises you in passing, that's the applause she'll never give directly. The fact that she watches but doesn't reach out, that's all the recognition you'll ever need, because deep down she sees it, she knows, and it stings. But don't look back, waiting for that message that says, "You've changed." You already know you have. You can feel it in your discipline, in your decisions, in the way you carry yourself without needing to explain or perform. The man you are now is the result of quiet work, of choosing yourself day after day, even when it hurt. And that kind of change doesn't need validation. It doesn't need applause. It simply is. You didn't rise to make her regret. You rose because there was a version of yourself buried beneath pain and disappointment that deserved to be seen by you. Growth that's genuine doesn't ask to be noticed. It walks into the room and changes the temperature, whether anyone admits it or not. So keep your head high, not because she finally sees you, but because you finally see yourself. And that's all the recognition that truly matters. 7. Silence alone isn't enough. You must let go mentally. There's a world of difference between silence and true detachment. A man can stop reaching out, delete the number, erase the photos, but still replay every moment in his mind. He might appear calm on the surface, but underneath he's hoping for a message, a sign, some hint that she still cares. That isn't healing. That's quiet desperation dressed as discipline. Real strength is not found in withholding words. It's found in reclaiming your emotional space. It's easy to go no contact, but it's something else entirely to truly let go. To stop checking her page, to stop wondering if she thinks of you, to no longer feel that ache when her name crosses your mind. That's when you know something's changed, not just in your actions, but in your soul. You didn't just go silent. You stopped giving her emotional access. You stopped holding her memory in the most sacred parts of your mind. And it didn't come from hate. It came from peace. You no longer needed her to understand. You no longer craved her clarity. The closure you were waiting for, you gave it to yourself. And when you do that, when you truly detach, something subtle but powerful shifts. She might not know why it feels different. She might not even be able to explain it, but she'll feel it. Because for so long, even in silence, you were still there. Still emotionally available. Still watching, still waiting, still hoping, even if you didn't say a word. Now, you're gone in a way she didn't anticipate. You're no longer holding space for her, no longer tethered to the possibility of what if. You've made peace with what was. You've accepted that her chapter in your story has ended, and you've stopped rereading it. True freedom doesn't come from ignoring someone. It comes from no longer needing them to be anything for you, not a source of validation, not a symbol of pain, not even a memory worth holding onto. You acknowledge the past without being ruled by it. And in that emotional release, something powerful happens. She becomes irrelevant, not out of malice, but because you've simply moved beyond the version of yourself that once made her matter so much. That's not silence, that's liberation. 8. Level up. quietly, consistently, relentlessly. You don't need dramatic before and after photos. You don't need a spotlight or a perfectly edited highlight reel to prove you've changed. Real transformation doesn't happen under flashing lights. It happens in silence, in routine, in the quiet hours when no one's watching and you're choosing yourself again and again. There's no cinematic soundtrack playing in the background, just the rhythm of consistency, 1% better every day. That's it. The path to becoming undeniable isn't glamorous. It's filled with repetition, with early mornings, lonely nights, and battles no one will ever know about. You start making better choices. You get up when you don't feel like it. You train your body, sharpen your mind, strengthen your spirit, not to prove anything to her, but because you finally understand what it means to show up for yourself. You start stacking wins, small at first. A better workout, a clear boundary, a project completed, a trigger resisted. And without fanfare or validation, your life begins to shift. Quietly, relentlessly. You grow into a version of yourself that doesn't need to be seen to be certain. And while you stay focused, something starts to happen behind the scenes. She begins to hear about it, from mutual friends, from unexpected sources. Maybe it's a casual mention. Maybe it's a glimpse of you in a place she didn't expect. The universe has a way of reminding people of what they lost, without you needing to lift a finger. But here's the thing, you no longer care who's watching. You're not building for anyone else. You're too focused to flinch at her curiosity, too grounded to crave her validation. The satisfaction now comes from within, from knowing you kept going when it would have been easier to give up. From knowing your silence wasn't about avoidance, but evolution. Because leveling up isn't about revenge. It's about responsibility. It's about realizing that the life you want is waiting for you on the other side of discipline, on the other side of emotional control, on the other side of no longer needing to be understood by the person who once misunderstood you. So keep going, keep rising, let the noise fade behind you. Your silence doesn't mean you disappeared. It means you're becoming something so powerful, so refined, so real, it can no longer be ignored. That's not emptiness, that's rebirth. And as you continue to rise, quietly, steadily, without the need for recognition, you begin to notice something deeper. It's not just your habits that have changed, it's your identity. You've outgrown the version of yourself that once waited for closure, that once questioned his worth through someone else's eyes. You're no longer walking this path to be seen by her. You're walking it because you finally see yourself. And that, more than anything, is what shifts the story completely. Because while you were becoming more, stronger, wiser, untouchable, she was still holding on to the role she thought you'd play. She believed you'd crumble without her presence, that you'd chase, that you'd fold. But when the man she assumed would break becomes the man she now watches in silent awe, everything begins to unravel for her. She's confused, not just because you vanished, but because you didn't perform the heartbreak she expected. You didn't fall apart. You didn't chase answers or beg for another chance. Instead, you disappeared into purpose, into peace, into the version of yourself that didn't need her validation to become whole. And now, all she's left with is a story she can't rewrite, a chapter she can't re-enter, and a man she no longer has access to. You never lost, not when you chose self-respect over reaction, not when you stopped needing to be understood and started understanding yourself, not when you stopped holding space for someone who didn't stay. In her eyes, you disappeared, but in truth, you arrived, fully, quietly, completely, and your silence, it wasn't absence, it was your arrival. I hope the message in this video found its way to where it needed to land. Like every piece I share, it's never just content, it's a reminder of who you are and who you're becoming. If something here spoke to you, take a moment to reflect, to act, and to keep building forward. And if you're ready for more, you know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you next time with something real, something honest, something that keeps us growing.